Hello everyone, welcome to lesson 48 of our Golang course. In the previous lesson, we touched upon empty interfaces. In this lesson, we are going to focus on them along with type assertion and type switch. So let's get started. What exactly is an empty interface? An empty interface is denoted by the keyword interface followed by opening and closing bracket. It can store any value of a type that implements 0 or more methods. This means it matches every other type in Go. As such, it can be used to represent value of any type. Since Go is a statically typed language, sometimes you need a way to store the values that can be of any type, such as reading data from a JSON file where you don't know the type of value in the file. Let us now look at an example of how to use empty interfaces. Here, in our main function, I will create a mixed slice. So mixed slice will hold values of any type. Please note this here represents the empty interface. So interface followed by opening and closing curly braces. Since the slice stores empty interface values, which means I can use it to store any kind of value. As you can see, I was able to store 42, which is an int value, hello, which is a string value, 3.14, which is a float value, and true, which is a boolean value. Now, let us create a function print value that accepts a value of empty interface, or in other words, a value that can be of any type. So here, I have created a function print value which accepts a value of empty interface type. Inside it, I will use fmt.println to print the value. If you're wondering how was I able to pass the value of empty interface type to the println function, it is because println2 accepts a value of empty interface. Here in the documentation, it's saying that it will accept a variadic parameter of any type. Any, as we have already mentioned, is a type alias for empty interface. So if I replace here with any, it will still mean the same. Now let us range through our slice to print the value inside the slice. Then we will just call our print value function passing the value. Now if you run our program, you will see all the values are printed from the mixed slice. As you can see, 42, hello, 3.14 and true were indeed printed to the console. So this is how you would use empty interfaces in Go. So we have already seen how to use empty interfaces. What if you want to get the actual type of the data from an empty interface type? Now there are times when you need to find the type of value stored in the empty interface to perform certain operation. As Go again is a statically typed language, there are few methods to do so, like using the reflection package, using type assertion, or type switch. We will look at reflection in a future lesson. For this lesson, let us concentrate on type assertion and type switch. So what exactly is a type assertion? Type assertion, as the name suggests, is used to assert type on an empty interface value. Type assertion is different from type conversion. Type conversion is done at compile time, while type assertion is done at runtime. Since type assertion is done at runtime, the code can panic if the assertion is wrong. We will see that we can use OK idiom to prevent panics or to check if the assertion was correct or false. Here I have an example of type conversion. If you remember, if a type is derived from a string, you can convert it back to a string using type conversion, which is data type, braces, and inside the type you want to convert. Whereas type assertion is done like this: empty interface value, dot, and in the brackets, the type you want to assert on. Now let us look at an example of type assertion. First I'm going to create a variable of type empty interface. We will name this empty interface, and curly braces, or you can use the alias any. Now let us assign empty interface a value of string. So empty interface now holds a string value. Now let us assert that empty interface is a value of type string. If str okay empty interface assert that this is a string, and if okay, we will print fmt println the underlying value is a string and then pass the string to it. So as you can see, when we do type assertion, we get two values. The first is the value converted to that type that we are asserting, and the other one is a bool value indicating if the type assertion was successful or not. So as we know, empty interface is a string value, so our assertion should work as expected. Let us run our program to verify the same. As you can see, we got the underlying value is a string printed to the console. As I told you, if the assertion is wrong, this bool value will be false. So if I assert that empty interface is a string and then run our program again, you will see nothing is printed because this statement is only printed when OK is true. Now what happens if I do this? I'm only asserting but not checking if the assertion worked or not. I'm asserting that the empty interface, which now stores the string value, is an int value. As I told you, this code will panic. As you can see, interface conversion. Interface is string, not int, and the code panics. So this is why whenever you're doing assertions, you're always suggested to do it like this with an if check, performing the check on second variable, that is OK, and then working inside the if check to make sure that the assertion is true. Now let us look at type switch. Sometimes you need to check empty interface values against multiple types. This is where type switch comes into play. Type switch is just like that switch statement. The type assertion is done in the switch statement itself and cases as to match for the type. Inside the case statement, the type of newly assigned variable will be that of the case. It is better understood with an example. So let's have a look at one. First, I'm going to create a check type function which accepts a value of empty interface type. Inside it, we'll perform type switch. To perform the type switch, you can assert on the type like this and say value dot type. So in the switch statement, we are asserting on the type, and inside it, we can match on types: case int, case string, case float 64, and the default type. Now let's fill in the cases. Here I can say fmt.println type is an int. Let's just copy it and print it into other cases. Here I can say type is in string. Similarly, here I can say type is a float 64. Here I can just say unknown type. So just to recap, similar to the switch statement, we have switch, which is switching on the type, and then different cases if the type matches int, string, float 64. You will notice that inside the case block of case int, the type of v is int, and in string it's string, and in float it's float 64. v in default, it will be an empty interface. Many times in Go code, when there is a type switch, you will see that shadowing is used, as here shadowing makes more sense. Now let's call our function with different types and then run our program to see what the outputs are. So here you can see I'm calling check type with values from the previous example, that is int, string, float, and bool. Let's now run our program to see how it works. As you can see, since we have case match for int, string, float, all those values were printed. But when we passed a bool, unknown type was printed. That is, types were matched as expected. So this is how you use type switch. Type assertion and type switches are sparingly used in Go, as Go is a statically typed language and it is better to let it be that way unless and until you really require type switching or using an empty interface. Generally, they are used to check if a provided type implements an interface. It was also used when Go did not have generics to make code compatible with multiple types. But since the support of generics from 1.18, this is no longer required. Let's now summarize everything we have learned in this lesson. In this lesson, first we looked at how empty interfaces can be used to represent a value of any type, which is useful when the types are not known, like when reading a JSON file. Then we also looked at type assertion and type switch. Both can be used to turn an empty interface type into a concrete type. That's it for the lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please post a comment under the video or reach out to our Discord server. Until next time, happy coding!